Hi folks, you're with us today, Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that I've touched on before, which is the capacity of the deep state, the globalist deep state, to intimidate any citizen or any person that they want to, and using the unlimited funds of the state and the unlimited resources of the state to go and pursue people for purely ideological reasons. These citizens have committed no crime or have not intended to commit a crime. They're simply being pursued for ideological reasons. Sure, there's a fit up and there's an invention that there was some sort of maybe a could be type of crime committed, but that's only the window dressing. The issue is that they're being chased for purely ideological reasons. Now, we need to just understand the power of the deep state. And I say this in the context that I think I could be the third or the fourth former Trump lawyer has rolled over in this Georgia case, this Fani Willis, sham prosecution. And I think Jenna Ellis is her name, and much to the gloating of the mainstream globalist controlled media, this former Trump lawyer stands up and in a teary little girl voice, "Oh, please forgive me. I've been really bad. I've offended the deep state." And has a good cry on camera. Again, much to the gloating of the deep state. We told you, look at this. And begging for forgiveness and mercy and so on. Now, this is clearly a broken woman who's either so terrified about what they will do to her, or they've done so much to her already that she looks at a future that's so bleak and lack of promise that she's willing to say or do anything. She's effectively been, in my view, being tortured. Now, if you go and watch the Soviet show trials in the old Soviet Union, where they would wheel people out and give them a confession that they had to make. I have been an enemy of the people. I've been a counter-revolutionary. I have had bourgeois thoughts. All this sort of stuff. And really, the person was guilty of nothing, but that they make this confession that's supposed to be full of contrition, and instead of getting 25 years in the Siberian work camps, they're only going to get 1 year, and this sort of thing. So we're looking at a show. Let's just be crystal clear about this. We are looking at a show trial. Someone has been terrorized to such an extent that they believe a groveling, tearful apology and admission and confession on camera is, and this is what the deep state wants them to do, of course, is the only way they're going to escape. Now, I just want to sort of, I've seen this in real time personally, so I can speak with some considerable authority on watching people being destroyed by the deep state, and whether the deep state is in support of rigged elections, or the deep state in support of mass migration, or the deep state in support of gender and race conflict. It doesn't matter. Any one of these is the same ideological entity pursuing the different threads of its ideological imposition of a non-representative government on the Western polities. Now, I'll just set up the sort of the understanding of the situation. I've seen a lot of guys were colleagues and people destroyed through the divorce courts, and this was my first exposure to ideological law and the ideologically driven deep state. This was my first exposure to it. I didn't really know. I hadn't really come across it before then, and didn't really understand it. If someone had told me that it was a thing, I probably wouldn't have really listened that much. But this was now around the same time as this, within the same sort of few years, I was doing a vast amount of international travel. So I was getting to understand the international nature of deep state propaganda and influencing. This is pre-internet. So at the same time, my awareness was increasing in other areas. But just coming back to the people being destroyed, because I want to get across in this video just the power of the deep state to destroy and crush people with the use of unlimited taxpayer-funded resources. If these people had to pay for it themselves, it probably wouldn't happen. But because it's unlimited taxpayer fund and just whoever the public servants or government officials are, they're just signing off on this money without any oversight. So now these are guys. There was a time, and in my lifetime as well, where people who are hardworking and bright and capable could do very well for themselves. There was a lot of sort of socio-financial mobility in the workforce. If you had the skills and the ingenuity and the industriousness and the conscientious sort of application of your skills, you could do very well. And this was particularly evident in areas such as, in say, the higher technology industries, in things like computer programming, coding, things like that. Now, I was often involved in areas where, say a young VP, where the product development departments and the research and development departments, that sort of thing, were reporting into me. So I got to know these guys fairly well, and I got to sort of see them every day and be sitting in meetings alongside them and so on. Now, these were guys who were making, several times the average wage, and they were usually youngish and very, very sort of impressive. Many of them are very impressive, bright guys, trying very hard to be excellent, to demonstrate sort of excellence in their work and high levels of achievement. And things like if there was a particular technical problem, which could be sort of come from any sort of area relating to code or electronics, that sort of thing, then you could get a bunch of these guys in the room, and just the intensity of not just their intelligence, but their application to solve that problem. They wanted to solve it. What was wrong? Why was it not working? Let's collectively work to fix it. So impressive guys. Now I noticed at the same time, none of these guys came from wealthy backgrounds. They were mostly sort of, not all, but mostly probably lower middle class, I would think, maybe middle of the middle, lower middle class. Very few of them came from affluent backgrounds, and that hunger to achieve and to do better and to improve their financial situation and so on tends to come from people further down the socioeconomic scale. Not always, but it tends to. So anyway, these guys would then, because of their background, they would tend to marry women or have long-term girlfriends, whatever, but tend to marry women who are like the receptionists and the very lowest level. Now, something that was common throughout pretty much all of them, I think, was they wanted to. Now they had this wealth that was acquired through their own ingenuity. They weren't handed it, they weren't given it, they weren't gifted it. It was them, their brains and their hard work and their hard studying and all that sort of thing that got them this wealth. So they wanted to marry women who would appreciate what these guys were giving to them. You have no hope. You're a receptionist. You'd marry a truck driver or something like that, or you'd marry a labourer typically. But I can give you a lifestyle you never could have dreamed of. It'll be a nice house. The kids will go to good schools. You'll drive a nice car, and we'll have all these things, and much of it material, and you would never have that. So that's how much you're going to appreciate me as your husband, my ability to earn a high income and bring that money back into the household. So they tend to marry women who they thought would appreciate their high income earning capacity. Now, they had no idea that ideologically the world was moving in a different direction. That if you earn a higher income than her, then you are her oppressor. You are the embodiment of Hitler. Do you earn a higher income than her or not? You do? Well, that makes you a fucking Nazi. And they didn't, they had no comprehension of this sort of ideological world where facts and evidence don't matter and ideology reigns supreme. They just didn't realize they were walking into one of the biggest gender conflict storms that ever has existed in human history. They didn't see that. And they were sort of, if you like, the last tranche of self-made, socially, financially mobile middle-class men. That era was coming to an end, and they were just now deemed as fascist Nazi, patriarchy, Hitler, and and again, they had no comprehension of this. So because they're marrying these sort of women, as the gender ideology started to creep into so many things, these women realised that, well, I like all this money he's getting, but he's working long hours. He's not paying me attention. I want all this money. I want all these benefits, but I also want him to pay me lots of attention. I'm a princess and I want lots of attention. He's not giving me the attention. And hey, I can leave him and I can get a free house. I can get child support and alimony because he earns a good income. I get the car, I get the furniture. Fuck me, I get everything. And if the kids stay on to do, say, university, or if I can get some flunky stooge doctor to say that they've got special needs, he has to pay me. He has to pay me child support and alimony until the kids are in their mid-20s. I mean, holy fuck, what a cozy deal is that? And so a lot of these guys were getting divorced. And now I knew them well enough to know that they weren't, unpleasant, evil, bad people. I mean, a couple of them I thought, but these were good, honest, genuine guys trying their hardest to do their best and to make the best of the skills and so on that they had. They could have easily just become labourers or street sweepers, but they didn't. And I admired their application again and their intelligence. Now, some of these guys, once they started going into this ideological divorce court system, they were quite sort of surprised. She's decided to leave me. Okay, fine. Well, that's it. But she gets to take the house and the kids and everything with her, and I have to pay her for that privilege. You've got to be kidding. And when you're self-made and you've made your own breaks and worked hard and you're being rewarded for your hard work and your ability, you sort of you don't see the world through the eyes of the social justice. Whereas, well, look, the patriarchy and the history of men oppressing women, and we have to steal everything that you've got to give to her. It's restorative justice. It's restorative. It's making up for the centuries where the patriarchy and And so they would be in court and they said, well, she refused to work. I wanted her to work. I kept on pestering her to work, but she refused to work. So what's this, what's this business about, oppression and so on? Oh, so you pester her to work. Well, that makes you Hitler again. But if she doesn't work, I'm Hitler because I oppressed her. But if I pester her to go to work, then I'm still Hitler, and and so on. So they would come back to me with these. Now I watched these people being crushed step by step. They couldn't. Now if they complained about not seeing the children, then the ideological fanatics in the divorce schools just say, oh well, that's because you're a child abuser, and they would just make it up, and whatever was alleged became fact, whereas he required mountains of evidence. I mean, if she could allege she's a child abuser, but if he rebutted it, he had to have a million witnesses. So the burden of proof was vastly different, and the resources. Now, some of these guys decided this is crazy. This is crazy. I'm going to fight this, and then then I got to see the extent to which the deep state would go to crush these people. And this is the bit that I'm sort of getting to, how they would have got to the Generalises and the Sidney Powells and so on, Trump's lawyers. And effectively, they make sure that your life is unlivable. They send summons servers for court deliberately to humiliate you. So they'll come to your they'll stand in the reception area of where you work. They'll come in and then they'll call out at a loud voice. I mean a loud voice. Billy Bob Smith, come here. You have a summons to go to court. Now the implication would be, fuck, Billy Bob's he must have murdered a million people. I mean, holy shit! Why is this summons over here? It's like urgent and frantic and but all it was another hearing in the divorce courts. It could have been handled by letter or telephone or their lawyer could have been called, but instead it was done for maximum humiliation. So you've got that going on, coming to your workplace, and everyone's whispering about you in the work. Well, what did you do, Billy Bob? Well, how many people did you murder, Billy Bob? And that type of stuff. So very difficult there. Your relationship with your co-workers can never be the same, following something like that. Now, the next thing they do is they can have a court hearing to say you owe a lot of money, and whether you owe it to your ex-wife or whatever. They've hired psychologists to produce a report saying that you're a child abusing, Nazi, fascist, wife-beating maniac, and you say, well, I never even saw that person. I've never even met this person, says Billy Bob. But the reality is that this person supposedly went to interview the wife, and in an interview lasting 10 minutes, they were able to ascertain that Billy Bob is a fascist, Nazi, Hitler worshipping, swastika waving, wife beating, child abusing, and just about everything negative you can imagine. And then that psychologist then issues an invoice for $15,000, $20,000, which is absurd and outrageous. Then they claim they sent a letter to Billy Bob saying that they're going to have a court hearing about this debt he supposedly owes that he knows nothing about, by the way. And now the letter they claim they've sent was actually to an address that he lived at 20 years ago. They claim they sent the letter. There's no proof or evidence that they did, but they claim they sent it. If he doesn't respond in 14 days, then that automatically triggers a hearing, which they can, hearings that if Billy Bob wants to have a hearing about something, he's got to wait 2 years. If they want to have a hearing about something, they can have it in 5 minutes. So there's quickly a court hearing, says to Billy Bob, okay, Billy Bob didn't turn up. He owes the money. That he didn't defend it means he must accept his guilt, and then suddenly the resources, they can't find Billy Bob to tell him there's going to be a court hearing. But when they want to get Billy Bob for money, they can instantly find him. Seconds. It takes seconds to find him. But they can't find him to let him know about the court hearing. So these are the tactics and tricks they use. So next thing you know, there's Billy Bob's got another $20,000 debt. Now, because it's now gone into a collection agency of some sort, then they have another. So the $20,000 is now $25,000, and so on it goes. So before Billy Bob can even blink, he owes $30,000. So they say. Now, if he wants to fight that in court, it's his right to do it. But suddenly the waiting list is now 3 years for Billy Bob to hear it. And in the meantime, the people trying to chase him for money don't have to let up. In fact, he's appealing. It's too bad. So on. So they're able to do this. Now, the summons servers thing is particularly, one guy was telling me how he had a group of summons servers coming to, he had an apartment, and there were three ways in and out of the apartment. They had a summons service stationed at each position. This is how serious they're about to intimidate him. These are the resources they have at their disposal. There's a balcony at the front of Billy Bob's place. One of the summons service climbs over the fucking balcony to get into his place. I mean, on it goes. I just want to sort of say this to illustrate these levels of intimidation. Now, this guy who's subject to this sort of harassment and intimidation, where every day he gets a threatening phone call, or phone calls plural. Every day he's getting a threatening letter. Every day he's getting summons servers chasing him. He can't have a bank account. They've closed the bank in cahoots with the divorce court apparatus has closed his bank account. He can't have a bank account. He can't have a credit card or any sort of debit cards or anything like that. That's off. So his employer says, we only pay money, we only pay your salary into your bank account. We can't pay you cash or anything like that. He can't get a check because he can't cash the check. He's got to deposit the check in an account, but he can't have an account. So these are the few guys I saw who decided to fight back against what was an outrageous thing, falsely being accused of child abusing and wife bashing and goodness knows what, all because he just didn't roll over on paying the money they were trying to gouge him for. just think about it from the guy's position. She's contributed nothing to the relationship, not a penny. Sure, they've had a couple of kids, but she refuses to work. She refuses to contribute, and is careless with money and quite spendthrift. And to her, she's entitled to his high income, and her job is to spend his money as quickly as she can, not to contribute to a successful relationship or successful household. So he thinks, well, why should I subsidise that sort of bad behaviour? Why? But hey, Billy Bob, you don't understand. You're a member of the patriarchy. That means you're fucking Hitler. And we're allowed to do whatever we want to because of this restorative justice. And if you oppose us, then we have a right to treat you however we want because you're fucking Hitler. And this is the mentality. So I watched these men being destroyed in front of my very eyes. Now, I sort of tried to take a broad view of it because they were very good, or had been very good at their jobs, but it got to the point where they couldn't function. And you could see them, the losing weight, and you could see them sort of day by day. You'd watch their crushing in real time, that each day was another crushing effect of something. And they realized that they had no legal rights. They had nowhere to go. They couldn't lead their lives. They couldn't have a bank account. They couldn't do anything that was normal to the rest of us. They couldn't go to the place they were living at because they'd have summons service harassing them all the time and climbing over balconies and so on. They couldn't go out of the front door of their place for fear that a summons server would somehow be lurking around, somewhere ready to pounce on them. And again, these are the resources. You don't see these sort of resources being applied to people who've committed like armed robbery or murder. There were more resources dedicated to the crushing of these people who committed no crime than almost any other situation you can imagine. And I found this sort of stunning. Now, in one case, I helped a guy, didn't help him, played some sort of minor role in saying, well, look, put out an advert saying, there's got to be a lot of people out there who've been screwed through the system. So put an advert out saying that you want a lawyer to work, pro bono, in order to defeat the injustice that's going on here. And make no mistake, it was a savage injustice, an aggressive injustice, and an outrageous abuse and misuse of state, as in the taxpayer and the government, the resources. So he puts an advert out, and he doesn't get a single call, and it's a prominent sort of law journal. And the bottom line comes: no one's going to support. The ideology is, now if you're a lawyer that wants to go and support him, you'll very quickly find you won't get any more legal work. I mean, you'll be persona non grata. It'll just be quietly done through whispers and so on. But you won't get any more work, especially not any divorce related or that type of work. That'll be gone, and any other work. So you'll be on the streets yourself if you're a lawyer trying to represent someone like this. So if you don't do what the ideology wants you to do, they will crush you as well. You'll never work in this town again. Now, once they start on you, again, there's a whole lot they can do. You think about this. If you can't operate a bank account or have a credit or a debit card, then there's a shitload of things you can't do. Rent or mortgages are paid through bank accounts, salaries, wages are paid through bank. And if you haven't got those things, that really limits what any citizen can do. And if you do get a dollar or two appears, then they can take it off you and they can garnish your pay at a job you have, so you can't really work at a job. And I think the list just goes on and on. Your life is unlivable at this point. And this is what they can do to you. And this is why once you're in the vice-like grip of these people, and you look at your life, you go, holy shit. I might as well find a tall building here because I can't live my life in any side. I have to join a hippie commune out in the middle of nowhere. That's all I can do now. So the life that you knew and once lived has been forcibly taken away from you by the deep state for ideological reasons. You've committed no crime. And so the only thing you can do is roll over and go, hey, look, whatever you want, I'll do. Sign this confession. Fine, I'll fucking sign it. Now, in the Soviet Union, the old communist Soviet Union, they had these show trials, and these things that are happening to like Generellis, to me, Trump, and they're in my view, they're just a modern version of the show trial. There's no difference because they're purely ideological. And remember, the globalist government system is to impose an ideology on us all, to impose it. It's not with our consent, not with our agreement, not with our voting for it. It's to be imposed, and it's ideological government. So by definition, it must be tyrannical. And this is what tyrannical governments do. This is the rule of law, due legal process. The law is determined ideologically, and that's it. Now, if the facts happen to suit them, then sure, they'll use them. But if the facts don't suit them, then as far as they're concerned, the facts don't even exist. It's as if the facts never existed, and they just revert to ideology, which is what they're doing in the Trump stuff, or inventing things. So I just wanted to do that. And I've watched people be crushed. I remember here's one here where I remember a guy who was, I was over. I brought him his salary. And because I was driving past, and I wanted to see when he'd returned to work, because he was a nervous wreck because of all the harassment the government was funding and was going after him with. This is purely over. He's unwilling to roll over for a divorce, and for that reason, they're prepared to totally crush him just for that. Now, so I'm over there, and it was. I think Thursday was the payday. So anyway, I went over. I cashed his check for him, and then went over there. As in, at this particular company, I was the CEO, so I could cash his check for him, or sign that amount, and then So I was taking it to him, and just while I was there, and to just look at the guy, the sunken face, the terror in the eyes, that hunted look, and he'd already reached a point where he'd do anything just to make all the stress and pressure and aggro go away. So if they put a confession in front of him, you have to confess to flying to the moon and back or something, and 10 times in the last 5 minutes, he would have signed it. I mean, he was in that sort of state. And while I was there, a summons server, like a summons to go to court in some new invented, fabricated, misdemeanor he'd supposedly committed, some new debt they dreamed up that he owed, and so the summons server came. And again, the maximum intimidation is the thing. So this summons server was standing. This is just near the balcony at his place, and he and I are standing just back from the balcony, so I doubt he could have been seen from the street. But and then the summons server is out there and calls out his name, Billy, big booming voice, Billy Bob Smith, Billy Bob Smith. I have a summons, and they're screaming it out. And this is in the street. His neighbours, his friends, his people walking by can all hear. This is done for maximum intimidation, and what a fucking outrage. I was almost apoplectic with rage over this, the deliberate, willful attempt to intimidate and crush him. Anyway, as soon as this happened, the look of terror, the mask of terror that was already on his face, sort of doubled or tripled in its intensity. And the guy, I thought the guy was going to just lose it completely in front of me. And he just dived onto the ground. He just dived onto the carpet, just dived onto the carpet, shivering and shaking and breathing sort of like this. And that was the extent of it. Now, this was a gradual sort of, it's like the water torture method sort of thing. Like every day was just another letter, another phone call, another threat, another summons. And another court hearing where he's falsely accused, and an ideological hack stooge judge accuses him of outrageous things, and then places this outrageously high burden of proof on him, but has a zero burden of proof on the accusation side against him. And so I wanted to talk about it. So it's no wonder that people like Sidney Powell or Generellis are crushed. And you can only imagine. I mean, I can visualize the sort of stress and pressure and threats and cajolings that they're, okay, just sign this confession and then all the pressure will go away. It'll all stop. All the torture will stop, because that's what the fuck it is. It's torture. And again, I've watched people completely and utterly destroyed by this. People who've thought that their lives haven't been worth living. So that's where we're at now. And if we're going to push back against anything, this abuse of power by the deep state, and anyone that opposes the ideology of globalization will, if not today, certainly by tomorrow, the next day, will be subject to these sorts of intimidations and harassments. This is where we need to fight back. This is the hill to die on. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.